Before you continue watching, stop for a second. If you've ever shuddered at forbidden stories, if you're drawn to mysteries buried in the sands of time, this channel was made for you. Subscribe now and ring the bell. Don't let the algorithm decide what you deserve to discover. Today we're going to descend together through the dark corridors of a city where arrogance surpassed human limits. Sodom, a word that still burns in the collective consciousness. It's not just a name lost in ancient manuscripts. It's a cruel mirror of what a society can become when it forgets the essential. What you're about to hear isn't a history lesson. It's a warning disguised as a story. Stay with me until the end. You won't look at the world the same after this. There was a time when the city of Sodomy stood not just as a marvel of architecture, but as a monument to untouchable arrogance. High walls kissed by the desert sun shimmered like burning embers, casting illusions of fire that danced across the horizon. Travelers would pause, breath caught in their chest, as the crimson bricks reflected a heat that wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. Sodomy didn't hide. It didn't fear. It dared the heavens to intervene. Its people looked upon their impenetrable gates and saw invincibility, mistaking safety for permission. What do people become when they believe there are no consequences? Every stone laid in Sodomy's double-walled defenses told a story of pride. These were no ordinary barriers. They were feats of engineering brilliance meant to send a clear message. We cannot be touched. Between the outer and inner walls, soldiers patrolled under shadowed arches, unseen but always present. The corridors between them allowed perfect maneuvering, ambush, defense. From a distance, it looked like a city ready for war. But within, the battle had long shifted. From outside threats to the collapse of inner morality. They no longer feared the world. They feared boredom. Wealth poured from the ground itself. Bitumen, black, bubbling, precious. It emerged in small geysers like nature herself, offering tribute. Merchants crossed continents for it. Egyptians paid in gold to use it for embalming their pharaohs. One shipment could purchase an estate, a life of luxury. And just like that, Sodomy ascended. But it didn't climb with discipline. It sprinted blindly. When riches come without sweat, they erode the soul. Bitumen coated more than their hands. It stained their hearts. How many generations does it take before abundance becomes entitlement? The parties were more than celebrations. They were declarations of excess. They began at the new moon and didn't stop until the full moon reigned above. Music never paused. Drums, harps, flutes formed a symphony that made night indistinguishable from day. The scent of roasted meat and fermented fruit lingered in the air like perfume. And in these endless feasts, all rules dissolved. Laws were suspended. Hierarchies blurred. It was liberation, but not the sacred kind. It was chaos with a smile. Outsiders were often invited, unknowingly stepping into a dream that would become their nightmare. The garments worn by women weren't just clothing. They were provocations. Transparent fabrics, spun with the softness of petals, clung to skin like whispers of light. Under moonlight, they glowed like liquid silver, seducing every gaze. But this wasn't for vanity. It was defiance. We are untouchable, their silence screamed. Gold chains wrapped around ankles and necks from childhood, pressing into bone until skeletons bore the mark of decadence. Every step was music, tinkling bells and clinking metal. Their beauty wasn't passive. It was power weaponized. And the city applauded. Temples stood tall with open ceilings to the stars, echoing with chants led by priestesses wrapped in midnight blue robes. They worshipped not with humility, but with fervor and dominance. Astarte, goddess of love and fertility, ruled the rituals. And as the moon reached its zenith, the ceremonies began. Eyes painted with molten gold. Incense so strong, it choked the breath. Mirrors lining the walls multiplied every flicker of flame, every swaying body. The earth trembled, they said. But maybe it wasn't the earth. It was the weight of their intentions shaking the line between the sacred and the profane. But perhaps the most chilling truth was this. They had laws, not of justice, of cruelty. In Sodomy, compassion was a crime. To give bread to a hungry stranger was to invite death. One girl, Peletit, did just that. They tied her to a wall, covered her in honey, and let insects take her inch by inch. It was not just about punishment, it was about example. The city's legal code was a declaration of what it valued: control, conformity, spectacle. And when a society criminalizes kindness, it doesn't just lose its soul, it declares war on it. Justice in Sodoma was not blind. It was twisted, cruel, and theatrical. The judges weren't chosen for their wisdom, but for their talent in perversion. Their court, built of red marble, exuded authority soaked in intimidation. 5 judges sat high above, robed in black and gold, watching with hollow eyes. They didn't seek truth. They sculpted lies. One merchant, Eleazar, dared to offer bread to a starving man. His trial was swift, a trap. The beggar was part of the system. Eleazar lost his caravan, his dignity, and nearly his life. In Sodoma, the scales of justice were tipped with blood, not balance. They didn't hide their cruelty. They celebrated it. Foreigners were not welcomed. They were hunted. As travelers entered the gates, bells rang, not in greeting but as a signal that prey had arrived. Streets filled with grinning onlookers, doors slammed. A spectacle unfolded. Strangers were forced to dance barefoot on burning coals while crowds tossed stones, not to kill, but to humiliate. It was entertainment, a ritual of dominance disguised as tradition. And the city watched, not with shame, but with glee. When a civilization turns suffering into sport, its downfall is not a question of if, but when. Below the grand temple, hidden from ordinary eyes, was a chamber carved in stone, a place of whispers and screams. Spiral staircases led down into a circular room, cold and damp, where blue flames flickered from torches laced with salts from the Dead Sea. There, an altar of polished obsidian waited in silence, not for offerings of grain or fruit, but for human blood. Adolescents, the city's own children, were bound and laid upon that stone. Their cries rose through cracks in the temple floor, mixing with the chants above. Archaeologists found bones. They found the impossible. The horror was real. But what destroyed Sodoma wasn't just internal. The skies answered. In 1700 BCE, something happened. Something beyond human wrath. A heat more intense than any fire consumed the valley. Stones melted. Sand turned to glass. Witnesses said the sky turned red like open wounds, and a column of smoke rose so high it seemed to touch the stars. Scientists believe a comet exploded in the air above the region, creating a shockwave like Tunguska, but deadlier. The ground became sterile. Life disappeared. What religion recorded as divine judgment, science now sees as cosmic precision. Truth, it seems, has many voices, and yet Sodoma lives on, not in geography, but in metaphor, in language, in the cautionary tales passed from mouth to mouth. The phrase "as corrupt as Sodoma" outlived the stones and flames. But maybe that's the real warning. Not just about cities lost, but about the arrogance of believing we are above consequence. Today, in towers of glass and steel, in excesses celebrated on screens, echoes of Sodoma whisper, power without mercy, wealth without limits, pleasure without purpose. We are not so different. And maybe, just maybe, the fire never left. It simply waits. And so, the story of Sodoma is not just an ancient ruin buried beneath centuries of dust. It's a mirror, a prophecy, a reminder that when humanity trades compassion for corruption, when justice is sold to the highest bidder, and innocence is mocked in the public square, fire doesn't just fall from the sky, it rises from within. The destruction of Sodoma wasn't just a punishment. It was the natural consequence of a society that believed it could live without God, without truth, without limits. If this story stirred something in you, don't ignore it. This is more than a history lesson. It's a wake-up call. We live in a world that often looks like Sodoma in disguise, but we have a choice. You have a choice. Turn away from the noise. Resist the numbness. Seek the truth before the smoke clouds the sky again. Subscribe to this channel and follow Jesus. He is not only the escape from judgment, but the answer to the deep hunger that no feast, no fortune, no freedom can satisfy. Share this video with someone who still thinks this is just myth. Leave a comment below with one truth that pierced your heart. And most importantly, don't just scroll past this moment. Let it mark you. Let it move you. Because if Sodoma fell when it forgot God, then healing begins when we remember Him. My name is Oliver. I don't speak to entertain. I speak to awaken. I've seen too many souls drifting, too many stories ignored. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. Because some truths are too important to whisper. They must be declared. Thank you for walking this path with me. Stay close, stay alert, and stay connected, because the next story might just save your life.